Hi, I'm Dave with Level Up Woodworking, and today is part 3 of this assembly and outfeed table. And I will finish this thing today, but I've got a whole nother phase of projects that I'm going to add on to it. So you'll just have to stay tuned. In today's episode, I'm going to be working on the planer insert and the sander insert and getting those complete. I will also do a complete walk around at the end of the video. So if you want to skip to the end, you can, but certainly like it if you watch the whole thing. It'll be pretty interesting. So let's get started. Okay, I know what you're thinking. You want to skip all the way to the end and watch the tour of the table, but don't do that, because I'm still building a sander drawer and a planer drawer, and I think you're going to want to see that. So let's get started. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is to build a slide out right here for my planer. So the intent is I'll have a platform that slides out. I can run the wood through the planer and then slide it back in. So I took those two pieces of 3/4 inch scrap plywood and glued them together, and then I used some brad nails to nail them in place and used my favorite wood of choice, which is the 1/2 inch Baltic birch plywood, and wrapped the entire thing in that. I didn't put it on the bottom, but certainly on the sides and the top. Glued the top and screwed it in place, and what I ended up with was a 2-inch thick piece of wood that was very hefty that I could attach some heavy-duty slides to, and I feel comfortable with putting a 100-pound planer on. And in the end, it is very beefy, it works well, and I really think it's going to stand the test of time. I can't be more excited than to put these slides in. These bad boys are huge, and they're supposed to hold 500 pounds. I'm putting my planer on this drawer, and I want it to hold, so I think it's going to be awesome. Anyway, let's get going on putting these things in. Okay, the rails are installed. Looks very solid. The moment of truth will be when I put the planer in there. Got full use of it, can hook up dust collection, no problem. But the planer does stick out a little bit, and these blocks, and I'm going to bolt these underneath to the table, and then I can screw a bolt down into the blocks so the planer's secure. So I used some fairly long screws to attach the blocks to the drawer. It was pretty straightforward, but I wanted it to be solid, and then I had something to bolt the front end of the planer to, and had a little trouble getting this Harbor Freight clamp off the block, but hey, a pair of channel locks works really well, and I guess you get what you pay for, don't you? Okay, I finished this tray, which will have slides on both sides, and it'll slide out the end of the assembly table. I've made 4 of these legs, which I will hook together in this fashion so that I have a scissor lift that I can raise and lower this. And I'll use this roll bar right here and these stops to hold it. Off camera, I painted the enclosures on both sides for the sander and the planer, and obviously finished the scissor lift here. Pretty straightforward, pretty simple. It should work okay. We'll see what happens. I hope so, because I have no backup plan. And I'm ready to put the slides in and space it out and try it out, see how it works. So let's give it a try. Installing the slides for the sander drawer was pretty straightforward. I used a pretty standard set of slides. I could have gone with something a little beefier,
but you know, the sander itself isn't that heavy, and the slides in the end turned out to be pretty good. The problem I really had was with the scissor lift mechanism, which you'll see here in a minute. I wanted this to be a low profile drawer because, again, I'm trying to maximize the space available in this table, and I really couldn't afford to give up any space for a beefier scissor lift. So I had to go through a few iterations of the design to get something I was comfortable with.
Okay, well, that's my first try, and I can tell you right now that it's not high enough and it doesn't go back far enough. Well, I found two problems with this design. First, I installed the slides incorrectly and was able to fix that. And then secondly, some of the hardware for the scissor lift I put in wrong, and so I took it apart and put it back together. And I think now I just got to fix the height issue. I temporarily clamped the scissor lift a little bit higher. Looks like I got to go about 3 more inches out. Well, as you can see, I took my scissor lift for the sander apart once again. I just wasn't happy with the quality of it. This is my third attempt at redesigning it, and hopefully this one will work. So let's see what we can do.
Well, this was my third and fourth attempt at building this scissor lift. I ended up cutting the legs a little bit wider this time to add some more strength. And I also ended up trimming these on the bandsaw at an angle, so I had some freedom of movement of the arm as I put it together within the drawer. And again, I'm trying to make this a low profile drawer so that I would maximize the space I have in the table. Cut a few blocks out of maple that I used to attach to the drawer base as well as the top, and this would serve as my pivot points for the arms that I built. From here, you know, it was pretty straightforward putting all the blocks in and getting those glued in place. And while I was gluing those together, I worked on building and sanding the arms. I ended up having to do the arms twice, which was unfortunate, but hey, I think it turned out better the second time. And I just wanted to make sure that this had the best chance of success as I put it together. And you know, it did. It was definitely worth it, but it was a learning experience for me. Did the final sanding of the arms, and I rounded the corners on the end. And again, to do that, I wanted to make sure that I had freedom of movement of those arms within the drawer itself. I started cutting a couple of slots in the drawer base. This was to be able to fit my fingers in and lift the top up to exercise the scissor lift mechanism for the sander drawer. Pretty straightforward. It ended up working really well, as you'll see here later on in the build. Then I started taping and drilling the center hole in all the arms. This would best be served with a drill press to make sure that it was perpendicular, but I didn't have a drill press at this time, so I tried to do everything I could to make sure that it was as perpendicular as I possibly could. I got pretty close, but it was not perfect. And suggest if you do this build at some point, you definitely want to have a drill press to make it work well. After I got those holes drilled and a couple of slots cut in the arms for the cross members, I started assembling this on the table and used some 1/4-inch bolts to put it together so it would hold well. And that turned out to work pretty good. I got them mixed up a little bit, but I figured that out. And the assembly process went pretty smooth. I bolted the arms to the blocks on the base of the drawer first and kind of clamped everything in place before I cut and glued the cross members to the exact length, because I wanted to make sure that those were perfectly placed in there so that the arms would move freely. I didn't want any binding or anything, and I was actually very happy with how that worked out. Took me a while to get it done, but it worked out really well. Once the arms were installed, I moved on to installing the roller bearings on the end of the arms. And these are 1 1/4-inch bearings that I use. And again, I put these together with 1/4-inch bolts. The bearings actually move freely on the arms once they're bolted in place and can roll on the plywood. And I certainly could have put down some metal strips for them to roll on. That would have reduced some of the friction. But again, you know, I was trying to keep the cost down and trying to make this simple. And it turned out that this worked out fairly well for me.
I have to say, it took me 4 tries to get this lift to work the way I wanted it to for the sander. But I'm very happy with the way it turned out, and it's great. You just slide it out, grab the slots on the side, lift it up, tilt it back, bring it forward. Okay, this is it. This is the table. It's done, but it's not quite done, and I'll get to that in a minute. But let me kind of take you through the tour so you can see what it's like. The tabletop is a 3/4-inch sub plywood that's glued to the frame for structural support. And I have a melamine top on it. And the nice thing about this melamine top is it's screwed on all the way around on the outside. So in 2, 3, 5, 10 years, I can pull this off, put a new top on. And of course, I'm going to have to cut a new slot for the router table, but that's not too big of a deal. But I like the fact that I can replace the top on this. The other thing about the table is I've made 2 inserts, and if you watch the part 2 video, you'll see those inserts built and put in. And the nice thing about the design of this table is I can take these panels off, take, 8 screws out, slide out the insert, and put something in that's different. So let's say 5 years from now I want a different design. I could pull that out, build a new insert, put it in, and maybe put all drawers on the end. Who knows? So it does provide some flexibility, which I really like. I think you'll notice the panels that I have all the way around and contrasting the frame that I painted. I kind of like that look. It's something I wanted to do. This slot right here, I'm going to use to build a crosscut sled for my table saw, and I'll put that in on this side. And this door, which is the only door in the whole table, is the door for my Cyclone dust collector and access to my vacuum. It's not the best in the world, but it does get the job done. It can certainly clean up the table, which is kind of nice. This is a 2.5-inch dust port for that dust collection, and my power strip. And the nice thing about this power strip design, it's got plugs on both sides. So I have my dust collection plugged into this, I've got my router plugged into it, and I have my planer and sander plugged into it, which works really well. But don't try to run everything at once, because it won't be able to handle that. And the on-off switch is right inside here that you can access, which is kind of nice. All I have to do is plug one plug in, and I've got power to the whole table. I've got a drawer right here, and there's another one just like it on the other side. I'm not going to take you inside the drawer because I've got another video where I did some organization that I think you might like in the future. And if you come around here, I have my DeWalt 735 planer on a drawer. I can slide it out. It locks in place. I've got 500-pound slides for a 100-pound planer. So, hey, this thing it works well. I can slide wood in on this side and pull it out on this side. And I have a video coming that shows a dust collection mechanism for the table that works really well for me for this planer. But I like this because I can access everything. When I'm done, one click, and I slide it right back in. The casters on this I showed earlier in the first part, and I spent a lot of time looking at those. I like the fact that I can tuck them away and they don't stick out, I don't trip over them. And it's pretty easy to move this. It is a big, heavy table, but hey, with a guy like me with a 2-car garage and have to put 2 cars in here, I have to move it. So let me show you how easy it is to move once you get it on the wheels. There you go. That's pretty easy. Not too bad. And I can just pull them up to lock it in place and I'm all set. So let me take you through this side of the table. And I've got another drawer mirrored to the other one, so they both come together. Good sized drawers, access a lot of my equipment. That one actually holds all my stuff for my table saw. This one holds my drill and some of my things like my headphones and my face mask. This is the router section, the tabletop for the router. I can pull this off and I have access to my dust box right here. Whoops. I can also access the dust port right here for that dust collection, and the power switch for the router, and all my router bits I have on 2 trays that I can pull out, which works really well. And I have a little optional box down here where I put some of the tools for the router. This isn't on the plans. I kind of did this offhand, but if somebody's interested, I could still certainly make plans of that for you. But that table is kind of nice to hold some of those tools. Put that back on. Of course, I've got all my bins for my parts, and this is everything I have, and I still have room to grow. So it works well for me because I don't collect a lot of parts, but I like that. And then up here, I've got a full-length drawer for all my sanding equipment, and it comes all the way out. It's I think a 20-inch slide on there. It works really nice. And then on this side of the slot, I'm going to build a router fence, and I will put T-track in here so I can hook the router fence in. Haven't done that yet, but I have my router fence on this side and my crosscut sled on the other side. So I can kind of put just about everything I need on this table, which is great for me. Have a wood vise here, and for this wood vise, I didn't put this in the video because how many times have you seen somebody build a wood vise and put it in? So I decided not to do that. On the end here is my sander. I have a rigid sander. I'm sure a lot of you people are familiar with this. I've been very happy with this design, got a lot of good use out of it. I put it on scissor lifts so I can put my hands in the slots right here, lift it up, and set it right in place. I've got a couple tabs on the side that holds it in place so I can work on it. It's at a great height for me. I've really been happy with this. When I'm all done, oh, and by the way, it's already plugged in, so I can turn it on once I have power to the table. When I'm done, just tilt it back, put it down, and slide it back in. Been very happy with it. So hey, that's my table. And I've got some additional stuff coming. I've got a dust collection port for my planer. I've got some drawer organizers coming. I'm working on a glue station that I can put into this table. So a lot of things I can add to this. Of course, the T-track is coming as well. Been very happy with it. Hope you enjoyed the video, and thank you for watching. And if you're not subscribed, please hit the subscribe button. I'd appreciate it. Thank you, and thanks for watching.